Hi all, this is section 4, page 118 to page 121. So this is going to finish section B. So we're looking at aggression, and aggression is the result of increased levels of arousal and stress. Sorry, I should say it can be the result of increased arousal and stress. Not everyone behaves aggressively in situations where they're over-aroused. What aggression must be to be classed as an aggressive act? It must be physical or verbal. By that it means that's throwing a punch, kicking someone, deliberately taking them out, Roy Keane, and busting their knee. Or verbal, you're trying to do emotional harm or emotional damage. So you are shouting at someone, swearing at someone, like sledging in cricket, if you're familiar with that. It is supposed to cause harm or injury. I mean, obviously you can't injure someone with your words, but you can harm them. The idea is that you affect their concentration if it's a verbal aggressive act. Or to cause them harm, again, Roy Keane did deliberately go in at the knee to try and ruin somebody's career, or at least perhaps take them out of that particular game, but ended up ruining a career or two, perhaps. It's directed at a living thing. If you throw your racket to the floor in tennis, if you think of Djokovic, so he lost a couple in one season, that's not classed as an aggressive act because it wasn't directed at a living thing. He took his racket and he slammed it to the floor. So it was frustration, certainly, but it can't be classed as aggressive. If he'd thrown his racket at Andy Murray or whoever he was playing, or at the umpire, then yes, that would have been aggression because he was trying to harm somebody. He didn't do that, for the record. The intention to harm is there, so you're thinking ahead of time, that is what I want to do. I want to harm them. I want to stop them tackling me because they're winding me up. They're doing the same thing over and over. The umpire's not seeing. I'm going to do something about it because they're not. And it actually has to be done and not thought about it. So it can't be classed as an aggressive act if you're picturing yourself taking somebody out in a slide tackle badly so they can go and sit on the side for the rest of the game and possibly 3 more, but you don't actually do it. So aggression has to be physical or verbal. It has to cause harm or injury, whether that's mental harm or physical injury. It has to be directed at a living thing. There must be the intention there to harm somebody, again, cognitively, mentally, or physically, and it actually has to be done. So the problem with an aggressive act, from a coach's point of view when they're selecting teams, or from an umpire's point of view when they're saying whether something's a foul or not, etc., it's difficult to know what somebody's perception was. If you're choosing between a yellow and a red card, their intentions, because it's internal, you can't really know that 100%, so you just have to have an impression of it. So it can be a bit of a difficult and grey area. So to make it even more grey, they have given us types of aggression. So again, they're saying, as with many of these things, it can be on a continuum. Now, this continuum isn't in your book. This is my impression of it. I think they've given you a circle example where they've put 3 circles and said they overlap with each other. And where they overlap, they're basically saying it's a grey area. It can go between these two somewhere. So I've just popped it onto a continuum, but you can work with the circle, obviously, as well. So the first one is assertion, which is a positive form of aggression, or people see it as a positive thing and actively try to encourage it in their team. So it's approaching something with high levels of energy and vigour, and gusto. You've got no intention to harm anyone. You're certainly playing within the rules, but when you strike the ball, you strike it with force, with possibly a bit of extra force. Hostile aggression is very different to assertion, and the primary role is to injure or take somebody out of the game. It isn't sport related, it's got nothing to do with the sport, they're just frustrating you, so you want to take them out. And it's also can be quite reactive, and so they do something and immediately you respond with something a little bit aggressive where you want to harm them. It can be a result of frustration, which I think I mentioned. Relational aggression. So this is a relatively new thing, I guess, or it's certainly a relatively, it's spreading more now, it's getting bigger now because of social media, but malicious rumour spreading, resulting in peer rejection and psychological harm. So this is people putting things on Twitter, on Instagram and various other social media. So the Kevin Peterson thing rings bells, of people putting things that they've seen or done to try and harm them, can be classed as a type of aggression. It's very damaging in actual fact. It can be more damaging sometimes than taking a bit of a hit in a game. Instrumental aggression is a force applied to gain an advantage in sport. So it's not as bad as hostile, because there is an advantage to the sport. You're trying to win a goal, and that might be getting round a player who's constantly being better than you all the time. They're constantly there first, and you need to get round them. So you may end up thinking, I've just got to get past them to score this goal. So you do have an intent to get round them, and you think, well, I'm going to use this extra force, and if this force harms them, I don't want it to harm them, it's not my intention is to score, but if it harms them, so be it. You're willing to take the punishment, you're willing to take the risk of being sent off to use that extra force or assertiveness, but beyond assertiveness, if you like, to win. And if they get harmed in the meantime, well, that's just tough luck. So there's 4 types. I didn't put relational on this line because the other 3 are really quite physical, and the relational relates more to the psychological aspect. So general thoughts on this then, that aggression and aggressive acts are unacceptable in sport. They're not encouraged and they should be punished, whereas acts of assertion are positively encouraged in sport because it means that you are going to have more vigour and gusto. A coach would therefore be trying to use stress management techniques to move a player from being aggressive to more assertive. So now we're moving on to theories of aggression. There are 3 theories that I need to go through with you, and I've added a link as well, which we'll come to, that I need you to watch for me. So the first theory of aggression is the instinct theory. So that's over here, look, the instinct theory. The theory says that everyone is born with the ability to be aggressive and the need to be aggressive. It's innate, so it's not really going to change. It's going to stay the same. You're born with it. They say that aggression builds up in everybody and it needs to be released by everybody. And that aggressive release is called catharsis. It's a cathartic action. It's a relaxing action. So you feel aggressive and you release that aggression and you feel better. You feel more at ease. You feel more relaxed. And that's the cathartic or catharsis it might be referred to. So an act of, the act was cathartic. So the act of aggression was cathartic. It relaxed me. Sport does allow for a more acceptable a more acceptable release of this aggression. It does allow for that. It's more socially accepted to be aggressive in a sport. So no one really raises an eyebrow in rugby when they start having a punch-up. Ice hockey, it's okay. Not everyone gets punished for it. I mean, sometimes you'll get sin binned if it goes really, really bad, but there's been some horrendous things there. But generally speaking, it's accepted. So what do we think of the theory? We don't really think a great deal of this theory because it doesn't account for different people showing different amounts of aggression. Some people never showing aggression and some people showing lots of aggression. So there's some thought, I think, that some people are born more aggressive than others, but it doesn't account for quite a lot, and it certainly doesn't account for somebody copying somebody else's actions and they've never been aggressive before. They haven't been in a situation that's raised their levels of aggression and then they're still aggressive anyway. So not much credence, we say. It hasn't got much credibility. So from here, we're going to go, this is where I need you to watch the video for me. So they're basically saying that there must be external influences to make people behave in different ways in different situations, which I completely agree with. So this is the social learning theory. So the social learning theory states that aggressive behaviour is learned through modelling and copying, vicarious experience. So you watch somebody else and you think, right, yeah, that's what I think is normal, so that's how I'm going to behave. This only works, it's not just from watching people, it only works if the behaviour is socially acceptable to you, if it's encouraged to you. So if all your peers are behaving in that way, then and it's not punished, you'll see that as an acceptable way and behave in the same way. If your coach or significant people in particular, so parents, coaches and peers, teammates, if they do behave in that same way, or if you behave in that way and they encourage it, they reinforce it, then you are more likely to repeat that sort of behaviour. So what it doesn't account for is the fact that lots of people can witness violence and violent acts, so they can see hooliganism at football matches, but they don't get involved with it. At this point, please would you copy and paste the YouTube link and have a watch of it. If the YouTube link isn't working, could you YouTube search for Bobo Doll Experiment? It's Bandora Bobo Doll, B-O-B-O. So hopefully you've watched the Bobo Doll Experiment now, and you have probably come to your own conclusions about what's right and what's wrong in terms of these theories so far, and perhaps you've come to the same conclusion as other theorists and said, I think it's a bit of a mixture of both, the instinct theory and a bit of social learning theory. So that's where we're going next with this, and we're looking at frustration aggression, and this is what we call an interactionist theory. So it does consider both what you're born with and what you learn from other people. So first of all, they say anger is caused by frustration, which makes sense. You're in a game situation, someone's blocking your goal repeatedly, or the umpire is not seeing something repeatedly, and it causes frustration. So the theory then says that frustration doesn't always lead to aggression. You can be angry, you can be frustrated, but it doesn't mean that you're going to act on it. And we know that aggression means that you have to physically do it. So behaviour, they say, can be modified. It can be, or your response to frustration can be modified. So it says here that if cues are socially acceptable, if cues are socially acceptable and they are present, then aggression is more likely to occur. So by that I mean, if we go to Millwall, where their level of hooliganism is very high, it's well reported, everyone knows about it, and you're a 15-year-old kid that's gone with your parents to go and watch the game, and the parent is with other people who are also aggressive. If the boy is to hit somebody and the parents and everybody around them are to cheer and congratulate him afterwards and reinforce his behaviour and say, yeah, well done mate, this is awesome, blah blah blah, then they are more likely to repeat that aggressive behaviour and more likely to do it worse the next time round. So what we're saying here is these cues, if they go to certain grounds like Millwall, if you are against certain players, if you are playing certain positions, then you may be more likely to respond with an aggressive act if that's what's been done before and condoned. However, you can modify the behaviour with punishment. So if you see an aggressive act caused by frustration and you punish it and you send them off, and that's it, they're not allowed to play for the rest of the game, other people will not follow them if they've got any sense. So they'll be less likely to have a repeated occurrence. So that's basically the theories, the three theories. You've got the instinct theory, you're born with it, there's nothing you can do about it, you're going to behave in an aggressive manner no matter what you do, but if you do behave aggressively, it can be relaxing, it can have a cathartic effect. Social learning says, no, you're not born with it, it's what you learn from other people. Aggression is only learned from other people. You copy other people's actions. If it's socially accepted, then you will behave in that way. Frustration aggression, the interactionist theory up at the top here, says, right, anger is innate. It will occur if you're frustrated, but you may not respond aggressively. It depends on that level of frustration and also depends on whether it's socially acceptable. So you will engage your brain and think, am I going to be punished for this, or am I going to get away with it? If you're going to be punished for it, you're highly likely not to do it, so it can shape and model your behaviour. If you are going to get away with it, you still might not behave aggressively. You will only behave aggressively if you want to, and if there are cues present that encourage that or reinforce that. Right, you've finished the section now. So we will move on to section C, self-confidence, next. If you can just make sure all your notes are up to date, that would be fabulous.